Hello, Gemini. Welcome to your July connection session. I'm Princess India. If you're new and if you're family, welcome back, my friend. The thing I've been saying in the beginning of all of the videos is that most of you guys know my grandmother passed away last month, so I wasn't able to do the connection sessions for June. So as opposed to starting off the month with the soul sessions, I'm starting off with the connection sessions, and the soul sessions are going to come out in the midpoint of the month. So we're just doing a little switcheroo. So I hope you guys are cool with that. You know what I'm saying? But anywho, we're going to get into this. We're looking at energy between you and a person of interest, as well as how your person of interest thinks as well as feels about you. So the card representing Gemini for the month of July. Interesting, covering up naked people. We have the Five of Wands in the reverse. So, Gemini, there's a need to heal some conflict. There could be some inner conflict going on, but that inner conflict I feel would more or less be in reference to you and other people, more specifically your person of interest. I don't know why I get this vibe of meddling is kind of the vibe I get with this, but whatever the case, the thing that would be in your best interest in the month of July is healing conflict. So if that is a person, like your specific person, like if you guys are kind of having a petty squabble at the moment, or you're giving them the silent treatment, or whatever the case, there's a need to kind of well, I'm not even gonna say kind of, like very quite literally, there's a need to let it go, to offer forgiveness, and to kind of bury the hatchet, if you will. Because I feel with this, the vibe is more or less like trying to, let me say it this way, the actions that you are partaking in at present, right? You have an ultimate end goal with it, but it feels to me almost like trying to prove a point, and that's where the inner conflict would be coming from, because there's a part of you that doesn't necessarily feel right with what you're doing. So it's kind of like, are you justified to feel the way that you feel? Absolutely. But the question would be how you're behaving in contrast to your justification, right? Is that effective? You know what I'm saying? I hope that that makes sense, because you could feel something. I hear people say all the time, like, I felt played by what this person did, and that's understandable because you feel played. That is your emotions. Your emotions are valid, right? But if you feel played, you decide to, like, I don't know, like hit a person with a 2x4. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're justified to feel the way that you feel, but is you hitting someone with a 2x4 really effective? No. Is hitting someone with a 2x4 justified? Not at all, right? That's assault. You know what I'm saying? So the thought is, there is an ultimate end goal, and we can get into the convoluted side of this, of like, we don't know what that person's intentions were, all of the things. But whatever the case, you guys are conflicted 9 times out of 10 with your person of interest. And I feel the way that you're behaving is because you're wanting to elicit some sort of an action from them. But then I also kind of get this vibe too of like being worried. So I don't know. I kind of, to me, what this would feel like is that there's some sort of like a silent treatment type of situation that's going on. There's some type of withholding. And whatever it is that you guys are withholding, it's like kind of looking behind your back in a sense, because there's some fear that's tied to that. Like, if you're not talking to the person, like an example of this, you're not talking to the person and there's a fear that they'd be talking to someone else, kind of deal, right? Now, with your person of interest, their energy, interesting. They have the Queen of Cuppies in the reverse. So with your person of interest, they're withholding emotionally. Now, I don't know what comes first with this, the chicken or the egg. It's not my situation, it's yours. You know what I'm saying? You'd have to tell me what the situation is. but they're withholding emotionally. I'm not sure. I mean, I'll see when we look into their more specific spread. I look at the Queen of Cups in the reverse. This could also be like emotional manipulation. You know what I'm saying? Like to where this person could potentially like withhold that would be the same thing that you're doing too. But it's like them withholding emotional connection if you do something that they don't particularly care for, so kind of like a punishment. But when I say I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, I don't know who initiated this. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, I'll get more information when we get into the more specific spread. But with this particular person, there's potential emotional manipulation going on with them and withholding of affection. And like, I mean, if I were to take Gemini's side, if this person has like a pattern of doing this, like, you know, holding back emotionally, and this is what Gemini is doing in response to this person, like, I'm going to give you a taste of your own medicine type of thing. The thing I can be honest with you about, and literally saying this as a therapist who has seen countless couples, that is the absolute worst way to approach things. And not saying that it's like a moralistic thing, like, oh, you shouldn't do tit for tat, be the bigger person. No, I'm not even saying it from that perspective. It's just the fact that if a person's method of maintaining control, because we're really talking about, if a person's method of maintaining control in a relational dynamic, if their method is you know, like going ice cold on a person, or emotional like withdrawal, first of all, that's a form of emotional abuse, so that's not a good thing. And the second thing is, you giving them a taste of their own medicine, so to speak, isn't going to change their behavior. They're not going to suddenly have an epiphany and be like, wow, I probably shouldn't withdraw my emotions from people. That's not going to happen. If anything, the person would see that as like a personal attack and wouldn't understand why you're doing that, because they've rationalized their maladaptive behavior. So they would always feel their intentions for what they do is different. But when you're doing it, you're being malicious. And a person who's like super pathological would try to throw that in your face of it being like a tit for tat type of thing. So I can just save you the time and tell you that if you're trying to get them to alter their behavior and you're kind of, you know, mirroring them doing a tit for tat thing, it's probably not going to work. It's going to cause more chaos. But I mean, if there's a person who does this, and if that's a person's method, that's typically ingrained in a person, because that's like a maladaptive type of thing. And typically with people who have like avoidant attachment styles, which is just a whole nother animal that we're not going to get into. But the other way I could see this, if it's not involved with any of that, I could give your person a little bit of leeway and say maybe potentially they're going through something right now, like potentially going through some sort of like loss or some sort of like stress with work or something along those lines, to where they've kind of just gone into themselves to try to find some sense of balance, right? And if that's the case, going back to Gemini, how I could see this is more or less this fear. So it's kind of similar to how I said before, but just not as intentional, to where, and that'd be interesting to see a Gemini do that. You'd probably have to have other stuff in your chart. I couldn't see like a hardcore Gemini doing that. But it's kind of like sitting back and not saying anything because you don't want to rock the boat. So you're not necessarily happy about this person's particular behavior, but it's like waiting in the wings and kind of, you know, it feels more like a Libra thing to me. I could see Libras doing that, but it's kind of like following the person's lead in a sense, in so many words. Now, the energy between the two of you, oh, sweet goodness in America. Okay. We have the star in the reverse. That's Aquarius energy. So between the two of you, it's feeling almost as if hope is lost. Now, this is an interesting dynamic, Gemini. Going back to what I was saying, if this person is a typical person where, and I still could see it two different ways, whether this person is someone, and this is only something that you would be able to say, if this is someone who has a tendency to emotionally withdraw, right? Like they're a Cancer, let's say that, right? they have a tendency to emotionally withdraw, right? And if you guys are doing the tit for tat thing, it's pretty much how I would project this into the future, as like this would be a relationship that just falls apart, because if both of you are like 10 toes down and your person is like, I'm not gonna, say nothing to them, I ain't about to apologize, nothing. If you're in the same place where it's like, I'm not gonna apologize, I'm not saying nothing, then that's how it would just pretty much continue into the foreseeable future, where neither one of you would ever be the person to reach out. Now, mind you, like I said, with the Five of Wands in the reverse, there is an opportunity for Gemini to reach out, but I have to really stress this. And I have to really stress this because this is sticky territory, because it's a general reading on YouTube, and hopefully no one is making life-altering decisions based on tarot readings on YouTube. But anyway, the thing with this is where it's sticky territory is because you would have to really be honest with yourself, with the person that you're dealing with. You feel what I'm saying? Because if this is a person who's emotionally manipulative, right? And anytime, like, I don't know, you go hang out with your friends and they don't talk to you for 3 days, like, that's a problem. That's a red flag, right? And if this is the first time you're standing in your power, then this Five of Wands in the reverse, I'm not saying that, oh, you need to go let bygones be bygones, bury the hatchet with this person, heal the conflict and forgive them. No. So you have to be really honest with yourself of the type of person you're dealing with. Now, if this is, a person where they don't emotionally withdraw as a form of punishment when you do something that they don't like, and you guys have kind of gotten into an argument, but it's kind of more or less of an ego thing. It's like they knew what they were doing. They knew that they were wrong. I'm not going to be the one that calls them type of deal, but there hasn't been like a ton of issues leading up to this. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of like an ego of, I don't want to look like the person, like, I don't want to look like I'm thirsty. I don't want to look like I'm running after them type of thing. That's another thing that you have to still be kind of honest with yourself on. If, are you taking this too far, and are you taking this too seriously? Like, are you butthurt over something like serious? You know what I'm saying? Or is this like something you've kind of blown out of proportion? You know what I'm saying? So I feel with the dynamics of this, the energies I'm feeling on both sides are kind of heavy. And even another way I could see this too is if this was like people who were newly dating, and this would be something that like you would resonate with this, because this is hella specific what I'm about to say. It's like you and the other person, y'all both have had less than stellar dating histories, like with people that y'all dealt with prior to each other, but both of you are kind of at like a no bullshit type of, state in your dating life, where it's kind of like first red flag you see, first conflict, anything, you're like, bump this, I don't have time for that. You know what I'm saying? Now, and this would be more on Gemini's side than the other person, because that's where I would see this Queen of Cups in the reverse in response to Gemini. And that kind of goes back to the first scenario that I was saying. But the specific thing would be, it's something the person said or something the person did, and Gemini was triggered, right? And your thing is just like, that's a red flag. And I'm going to use a really terrible example to explain this. So this is like, if you went on a date with this person, right? And it's not the first date, because I feel like that would be an unfair scenario. But you went on a date with this person. You guys have been on 2 dates prior to this. The person always paid on the date, right? Now, the third time you guys go on a date, they, reach in their pocket, and you guys are nowhere super expensive or anything like that. But, he goes to reach in his pocket and realizes, oh my gosh, I left my wallet, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'll cash app you back, totally left my wallet or whatever, right? So say that after the date, the person cash apps you back, right? Because you like asked them, like, where's my cash app, right? And the person cash apps you back, but you're like, red flag. Like, only reason why they cash at me the money was because I asked for it. Like, he should have sent it before I asked, and he's a bum, whatever, right? So you say that and you stop talking to the person, right? That's the energy that I see with this other dynamic, right? So it's, you have proof of the fact that this person isn't a bummy scammer. That's why I said I wouldn't push it on first date. But you have proof this person isn't a bummy scammer, right? But the person, they, I don't know, Uber home, whatever, and they didn't send you the money within the time frame that you feel that they should have sent it, meaning like, just ride home, whatever, and not like days or anything, right? But they don't send it in the time frame that you feel they should have sent it. You send them a text and they're like, oh yeah, how much is it? And then they immediately cash app you. But it's like a person harping on the fact of, I had to ask him to send it to me, right? Like I had to ask him that. And yeah, he sent it immediately when I asked, but he should have sent it without me having to ask. It's like harping on something like that and then not speaking to the person anymore. And that's where I would see the person like emotionally kind of turning off in a sense. So that's the other dynamic I could see it. But whatever the case, the states that you and your person of interest are in, the energy between the two of you at present is where there's not really hope for this. So if things were to continue on as they are now, most likely the two of you aren't going to be together in the future. And then there's a whole nother thing I could get in to with this. This is why I might start doing them this month, because there's another reading I'm adding to my channel. And I might start those this week. But what I'm seeing in these cards is kind of reminding me of how I do that spread. But it's how can I explain this, what I'm seeing? It's like there's some level of, and I'm not going to get too deep into it because I want to get into your person spread, but I'm going to say this just because I'm seeing it. There's some level of this with how the two of you are approaching each other. And I think this would probably fit directly in the vein if these are two people who've had less than stellar, like romantical kind of situations leading up into the two of you being together, which would fall into the energy signature I've literally been seeing for every other sign prior to you guys. But there's a level of authenticity with the two of you individually. And what I mean by that specifically is not that you or your person is being fake, but it's the two of you not being in alignment with your truth. It's almost like how both of you are showing up is like with scabs, so it's like, it's not your fresh healed skin, proverbially speaking. It's like the two of you are showing up covered in scabs, and that would be inauthentic, because you're like, a scab on a wound is not the true skin. You know what I'm saying? It's a protective covering so that the skin underneath can heal. You feel what I'm saying? But it's almost like the two of you are showing up as two giant walking scabs. And that's the inauthentic part. So it's kind of like how the two of you are dealing with each other. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Being in full SWAT gear and talking about, I'm ready to date and I want to be in a relationship kind of vibe. So that's just a little side note. But anywho, getting into the more specific spread, because I spent buku time on them cards, good Lord. But get into your more specific spread of how your person of interest thinks and feels about you. The first card we have in their fleeting thoughts is the Two of Cuppies. Interesting. Then we have the Ace of Wands in the reverse. All of these naked people. Wait. We have the Ace of Wands in the reverse. And then we have the Five of Pentacles. And then in their conscious thoughts, we have, interesting, we have the Hierophant, which is Taurus energy. So here is the thing, Gemini. So with your person of interest, they do feel an emotional connection with you. However, with this Ace of Wands in the reverse, I always say the energy signature of the Ace of Wands in the reverse to me is the Olympic torch, a bucket of water, and that's literally what it is. And that kind of piggybacks to this star in the reverse. So more or less, this person does feel an emotional connection with you. They felt like there was a lot of promise and a lot of potential for the connection, but where it is that you guys stand now, what they're kind of weighing is like, is this over with? Like, did, you guys had the big hoo-ha and like, passionate, fiery beginning, and then all of a sudden it's kind of dwindled out. But then on the other side of this with the Five of Pentacles, they're feeling left out in the cold from you. So that's like that cold shoulder, icing a person out, silent treatment kind of vibe that I was picking up on with this Five of Wands in the reverse, and what would behoove you. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, this is just going to take a lot of self-awareness and self-honesty, Gemini, of how you would move forward with this. Because the call for you now is to like, extend an olive branch, but whether or not you do that is contingent upon you being honest with yourself of why it is that, you're not, speaking to this person or communicating or creating some sort of distance between you and them. So a lot of the stuff that they're winning, they are seriously interested in you, but it's really them feeling iced out by you and feeling like, okay, well, this may be it. This may be, over with or whatever, right? Now, with their conscious thoughts towards you being the Hierophant and looking at this falling beneath this Two of Cups, with them, they see you as someone whose potential that they could, be in a commitment with, someone who they see that this can lead to longevity. Again, with this being in their conscious thoughts, this is something that they're aware of. That's like what their intention would be, in so many words, is the connection between the two of you following a more traditional kind of pathway. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as like marriage and all that, because the vibe that I'm picking up on with this feels more like dating. And it doesn't feel like, to me, people who have dealt with each other for like years. Like this would be two people who are like newly coupled, newly dating kind of vibe, but the person sees the potential of this leading to a commitment. But it's like in the midst of this, it's feeling like, you're kind of over them and this really isn't going to grow past this point. Now, their subconscious impression, oh my goodness, we have the Four of Cuppies. And this particular deck, the Four of Cuppies, is a karmic-y card for me. So in so many words, your person is just as guilty as you are, because this card is really speaking about like repeated patterns, you know what I'm saying? And karmic ties, but not karmic ties in the context of like you and another person. Is more or less like your own personal karmic patterns, if I could say it that way. So it's kind of having this mindset of, I mean, in a literal sense, it's like, because my mind literally just went to like past lives. It's like in this particular incarnation, you aren't who you were in past lives, right? Or your most recent past life. You have no choice but to go forward. But it's like, but going forward in the context of like cutting ties with what that past pattern is. If you don't believe in past lives, we could look at this in the context of like childhood, right? So like your past life and this life, right? So certain mistakes that you've made in, past relationships, or, maladaptive behaviors you have, or, less than stellar coping skills, or the way that you treated people in the past, whatever the case, it's moving past that, but not moving forward enough to make a full-on shift. So it's kind of like that repeated pattern of making those same mistakes. I've talked about this a lot in the soul sessions prior to you guys, where I was talking about like Gestalt therapy and unfinished business, like how we are trying to, put a period at the end of the sentence of unmet needs that we have from our childhood. And that's why we're drawn to the romantic partners that we are. So like if you had a parental figure that was impossible to please, you find yourself dating people who are impossible to please, because the hope subconsciously is if you get this acceptance from this person, that you'll end up being complete and at peace and feeling validated and all the things. Now, what's interesting that I pick up with your person of interest in reference to this projection, I don't feel like Gemini's natural pathology isn't this person's typical pathology, which is interesting. So if I were to say, like, staying with the example that I was giving, if this person's unfinished business, like their karma, right, that they came into this life with, is very like Libra South Node kind of energy. You know what I'm saying? Very codependent, gaining one's identity from a romantic partner, being like a chaser in so many words, right? Like, say if that's what this person's whole thing is. So a person who is, like a South Node, right? A South Node Libra, they would be drawn to a person who's like a runner. You know what I'm saying? So you're not a runner type though. So that's what I mean by like what Gemini's pathology isn't this person's usual type. But I see in the bigger scheme of things how that could be a good thing. Because if this person were to connect with you, it in essence would be them breaking out of the pattern. And I'm trying to explain this right because it gets a little convoluted. Like, you aren't actually like what they're typically drawn to karmically. You feel what I'm saying? But now Gemini is behaving like that, if that makes sense, right? So Gemini really isn't a runner, but is behaving like a runner. And like this person being aware that they're drawn to runners, they're seeing that as a red flag, and that makes them kind of pull back. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, that's okay. I have to put that on the tarot therapy playlist. That song by Jamie Foxx. I always fall for your type. See, I always fall for your type. That song, right? I'm hearing that in my head. But it's literally that kind of vibe. So it's like a person realizing like, this is my pattern. But the thing is, that's not really how Gemini is, right? It's just that is your like scab response to whatever it is that transpired between you and this person, right? So a lot of their, karma, past karma, this life, the last life, whatever, they're projecting a lot of that onto Gemini and seeing Gemini like every other person that they've dealt with. But I can see that's really not the thing, which is why I believe that this Five of Wands is saying there's a need for Gemini to extend the olive branch, because a person like the people they typically date or have been in relationships with, they would never be the one to extend an olive branch. But the whole thing is, this is coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of fear and a place of hurt. So in so many words, looking at their subconscious impression, that's really what's influencing the thoughts that they're weighing with this Ace of Wands in the reverse and the Five of Pentacles. You know what I'm saying? Because this is kind of like, here we go all over again. Like, this is what happens. The person stops talking to me, they ghost me, something seems so promising. Now it's going to not materialize into anything. So overall, before we get into their feelings card, I feel there's an opportunity. Like, there's an opportunity for this, but I mean, in my opinion, it kind of looks like both of you guys still have kind of a little more healing to do. So I would feel in a situation like this, it would behoove both parties if you guys took things really slow and were like friends and really took time to really get to know each other, because both of you are kind of in a place to where you're not really fully healed. So it's kind of being trigger happy in a sense, because it's like wires are being crossed, and how you're coming off, it's kind of like overly course correcting to try to protect oneself from whatever it is that you're afraid of. But their feelings towards you, oh my goodness, we have the Eight of Cuppies. That's hilarious. So with this person, legit, they feel like they're repeating a cycle. And that's the thing that I have to stress to you, Gemini. How they are seeing you is not how it is that you really are. But I have to say, especially with this being wands, you know what I'm saying? If this was the Five of Swords in the reverse, I could give you a little more leeway, Gemini. But with this being the Five of Wands in the reverse that you guys are showing up as, this is all about actions that one is taking, not just what we're thinking about, right? So whatever behavior it is that you engaged in to like self-protect or whatever the case, but again, I have to stress, okay, we have to think about the quality of this person. who this reading would be for, this is me talking to people where this was a petty squabble, not the fact that this is retaliation and self-protection from someone who, you know, has been misusive and things of the sort. But with this person, their feelings towards that they're repeating another pattern. It's like, I've picked yet another person that is just like every other person that I'm dating. Like, I thought that I changed, thought that I healed, thought that I was ready to date again. And it's like, here we go around the mulberry bush again. It's following the same pattern. And with this person seeing this 8 of Cups here and looking back at this Queen of Cups in the reverse, it's like them pulling back is like to protect themselves in so many words. Because with this person, I think when there's like a gap in communication or there's a distance, this person is typically the person who extends the olive branch. So they're the one like, hey, what's going on? Like, you haven't hit me up. Like, you good? You cool? Like, everything good, right? They're typically that person. But I feel like from experience, they've kind of come to a place to be like, okay, let me not do that because I look desperate and I look thirsty, and that pushes people farther away. You know what I'm saying? So their thought is more or less, which puts both of you at an impasse for real, because their thought is, you know, I'm always the one that's chasing after people, so I'm going to sit back and give them an opportunity to reach out. But then I feel on the other side, Gemini is looking at it from that same kind of perspective. But Gemini isn't aware that all of this is going on with this person. I mean, especially if you guys are newly dating and you haven't really got into all of that about like past relationships and stuff, there's no possible way for you to even know what this person's history is to how it is that they could end up like this. You know what I'm saying? But overall, I don't feel, for what I'm seeing, that this person has any malicious intentions. It looks to me like there was a misunderstanding. There's potential between the two of you. Like I said, my advice would be to take things slow. You know what I'm saying? And to, you know, not rush into it. Because in my opinion, like I said, I don't feel either of you are really ready, to be honest with you. But if this person isn't a horrendous person, and like I said, this is someone you're newly dating, I don't think it would be a horrible thing to reach out, you know, an olive branch, you know, heal the conflict between the two of you. Because I feel that there is potential here, but it's just a miscommunication between the two of you, if that's making sense. Wow, this is a lot longer than I expected it to be. It's like all the connection sessions this month keep falling in that 30-minute range. But I don't know, I've got addicted to throwing my zodiac dice, so I'm going to throw them. Oh, that was a poo roll. So we have Libra and we have Taurus, and we have a card that's Taurus. So Gemini may be a Taurus person, but it's important to note both Libra and Taurus are ruled by Venus. You know what I'm saying? Just throwing that out there. I don't know where that's relevant, but you know, those are two signs that came up. But anyway, that has been your connection session for July, Gemini. Most certainly let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, I love your freaking face, and I will see you guys sooner than later, my